We just didn't know when, and now it is official. Brigham Young will not be the newest team, not the only one joining the Big 12 next year. In the summer, Cincinnati, Houston, and also UCF will. And Marc Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, joins us on Sikkim 365 radio. And Marc, this was expected, but how much was today just kind of another part of the celebration of what's to happen soon?
Well, it eliminates a piece of uncertainty, which was what would the number be, and can you get to the deadline when you really had to have things in line to get into the conference for the fall of 23. So I think there was an effort of all parties to try to make this happen, because the domino effect of what it would mean for the AAC to then move forward with their new teams coming in. And I know the two sides worked really hard, and I think in the end, I think Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston have to feel pretty good about the terms of this deal. I think if you think where Mike Oresco started with his original buyout and where they settled, I think the three schools have to feel really good, particularly about the time to pay it off. You're talking about, over 14 years. I think it's a huge win for those three schools when you take a look at the money you'll pay, but over the period of years, it's a big win.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird thing to me. Over 14 years, I thought it would be over something like 7, or 6, Mark. So that's an even bigger win, because you could choose to pay it off at really less than $2 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's about 1.23 something, and that was also part of the negotiation. And look, these schools are able to do it, but it's not like there's a budget line at UCF that said, "Oh, here's $20 million in the event that you need to use that money for something." So it certainly alleviates some pressure. If it was, you got to pay all of it up front, or it's got to be 50% here, because we got a lot of moving dollars, guys. Of UCF leaving the American, getting into the Big 12, expansion of facilities, increase in staffing, and all that stuff. There's a lot of money kind of floating out there. But now it's clarity. It allows you, as UCF and the other schools did, you're out there now promoting season tickets for 2023. Let your fan base know, hey, get set for a schedule we anticipated, but now you know it's going to be with the rest of the Big 12.
Mark, how much concern was there that the American might at some point try and drag this out as long as possible?
I don't think that there was a concern that it would keep dragging out. Precedent had been set a few years ago. The way UConn was able to exit, I think it was a question over the dollars and a question over the number of years to pay it off. And again, I think Mike Oresco also felt some pressure in the American, because you saw what happened after the first announcement, and the second announcement comes about the TOSA schools that are going in. I think it was important for them to solidify that membership, to get some clarity on their TV deal, whatever that's going to be. So he felt some pressure to kind of get that done from the other universities. Look, in the end, they're still going to get a lot of money. It's going to take a while for them to get that money, but that's pretty much the structure of how these buyouts happen. But again, I think UCF and the other schools are happy with the resolution. So now you can really begin to focus on where you felt you were going in the fall anyway, but now you know the dollar amount.
Marc, really wanted to have you for a quick hit, but have you already seen, has Gus Malzahn seen an uptick with recruiting based on what happened back in the fall?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, the name change for Gus, the focus on certain players didn't change. He's been one of the best coaches in the transfer portal compared to anybody in the country. We've got a number of guys on this year's team that were best players at P5 programs elsewhere. But the quality of the recruit, he had a big recruiting weekend this past weekend with a caliber player that he didn't have a year ago, which was a really good class that he had coming to visit. Now, whether he signs, a bunch of these kids we'll see, but just getting some of the 5- and 4-star kids that you wouldn't have gotten on campus a couple of years ago come to visit, make official, unofficial visits. And now, instead of saying, hey, we're going to this league at some point, as he was telling a kid this past weekend, when you get here, we're in the Big 12. It's not like, hey, we're going to get there in a couple of years. So that is the message about when you come here, this is the league that you're stepping into, and it's absolutely been a big plus in recruiting.
Marc, I know that now that this is official, they can really start moving on scheduling, which we have no idea about so far. But do you think that UCF will get to see both Texas and Oklahoma over the 2 years, or given that it's 14 teams and only 2 years, what do you think is going to happen there?
Well, you guys know a little bit more of the politics of scheduling in the Big 12 than the rookies do. It certainly looks as if that league is going to have at least 14 teams for that first year in 23. How the schedule pans out, doing away with divisions, I guess they'll see. Look, there's a lot of interesting scenarios there. I mean, if a certain quarterback in Norman comes back for another year, wouldn't that be something if he played in Orlando? in 23, and UCF's been to Texas before. They opened the stadium at UCF years ago. So whether the league tries to accommodate everybody in some form or fashion, but as you guys know, you're going to play either 8 or 9 conference game. It isn't 13, so you're not going to get everybody, and that's okay. I think UCF is excited, one, to get the schedule of teams that are going to be there in 23, the teams that are going to be there long term, whether it's 8 or 9 games, and look forward to an exciting schedule. Look, the move also kind of changed philosophy for Gus Malzahn and the AD Terry Mohajir about non-conference scheduling. Their feeling was we really had to upgrade the non-conference scheduling, but now with the quality of the league, a little bit different philosophy of how many games do I need. BYU had been a non-conference game. It becomes a conference game now. So, all of that is part of the process of getting set to ramp up. But now you know for certain where you're going in the fall of 23, and the schedule will, whatever it's going to be, it'll be interesting. I think, as you guys know, if it's 9 games, that also does impact your scheduling from a budget standpoint. Like a lot of schools, you want 7 home games. If it's the year you got 4 at home and 5 on the road, how do you take it with your schedule there? So a lot of moving parts, but certainly an exciting process of getting the schedule done.
Mark, thanks for your time today. And again, expected news, but now official news out of the American Conference of UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston joining Brigham Young and the Big 12 next week. Marc Daniels, voice